Hello everybody and welcome to workshop 2 of 4 on our sustainable food tourism series. Today we're going to be talking about customer expectations and communications, and your presenters today are myself, Andrea Nicholas. I'm the Chief Executive of Green Tourism Programme, and Sandra Reid, who's the Director of Fair Consulting. Today we're going to be covering a number of topics. We're going to recap on workshop 1 if you were able to see that. If not, it's online on the Opportunity Northeast website. And today we're going to cover topics around changes in customers' behaviour, around travel and the green recovery and food and drink. And we're going to be talking about customers' expectations these days when it comes to the food tourism experience. We're going to share some opportunities on how you can tell your green story and some top tips, and as always, a little bit of homework at the end. So I hope you enjoyed today's session. So to start with, I'm going to talk about, well, what is food tourism, and the recap from our first workshop. In that, we talked about what a food tourism experience is. We talked about sustainability and what our impact is on the planet, which is significant. And the latest IPCC report, which came out quite recently, just re-emphasises the fact that we really need to do something about our carbon emissions. We talked also in that session around sustainable tourism and the circular economy in Scotland, with lots of resources on support and advice on how that's happening within the country. Some great case studies and examples, and we've also gave you some information on where you can get that advice through opportunities like Zero Waste Scotland, and we also provided you with a checklist on how you can do kind of a baseline review, so you can start to look at what you're currently doing within your business and what areas you could look to improve. And there were some great top tips on getting started. So if you get an opportunity to look at that one, I think it'll really help you understand what food tourism's experiences are about, how sustainability matters, and how to get started on your green journey. So today we're talking about customer expectations, and one of those is around changing behaviours in travel and tourism. And what we've seen over the last few years is a significant change in what customers are looking for when they're looking to travel on holiday or even for business. And some of the aspects around kind of whether it's right to fly or not fly, we've seen definitely an interest in holidaymakers and travellers looking for more slow travel and freedom to flex, looking for low carbon, carbon neutral trips. We've seen a lot of tour operators actually bringing in carbon labelling. So Wilderness Scotland have just brought in a carbon labelling for all of their tours, because they know that's something that their customers are looking for. And we've seen an increase in people interested in sustainability when they're eating out. So whether it's looking for options around eating less fish and meat, so veganry, which obviously is in January, big growth in the number of people looking to become vegan or vegetarian. I think Sainsbury's did some research and something like 25% of Brits will be vegan or vegetarian within the next 5 years. And slow food is a great opportunity to look at providing good quality local produce cooked in a nice way, in a nice ambience. And as I mentioned, some tour operators are really looking at that kind of no flight options. Byway is one of the ones that have recently won a few awards, and very much about enjoying the journey, whether it's by train or by boat, and thinking about their impact. And really we're seeing an interest in visitors thinking more and more about wanting to eat the destination, thinking about local, wanting to understand the local provenance. And I think that's something that we're going to see more and more of as we move on into more people interested in sustainability. And I think that's even the green recovery side of things. COVID, I think, has moved the sustainability movement on probably at least 10 years. And I think we're seeing, even during COVID and during lockdown, people were buying products that were better for the environment, even though they cost more. And we understand that, across the globe, people are interested in that. Green is part of the recovery. And at that kind of like reputational risk, if you're not putting people before profit, then there's a potential corporate risk. And interesting, booking.com, which is actually quite a green tour operator. They're based in Holland, very much looking at sustainability. And they did a big research last year, a travel report, which identified that 83% of people think that sustainable travel is vital, and a very large number saying that the pandemic has made them want to change in the way that they travel and be more sustainable. And actually, the pandemic effect could actually be that tipping point into people wanting to have sustainable travel and impactful action. So even through some disasters like COVID, we are starting to see that there's more and more interest and demand from customers looking for sustainable options. I'm going to hand over to Sandra now, who's going to talk about sort of changing behaviours when it comes to food and drink.
Thank you, Andrea. So as well as the behaviours around travel that Andrea has talked about, there are also some incredible changing behaviours around food and drink. I think we're all aware of how much we use our phones for planning trips and for eating out. And Instagram has a huge influence on how people select a restaurant or an eating experience or a food experience. This is particularly relevant when marketing to younger customers. Gen Z spend more time on their phone, twice the time on their phone of baby boomers and Generation X. So Gen Z are those under age 24. So just think about that if those are part of your marketing. Another trend to be aware of is the rise of the experience economy. Visitors are not wanting to just passively take part in tourism activity, for example, going to a museum or an art gallery, but are looking to actively participate in your food business, perhaps taking part in a beach clean, a farm experience, or a whiskey tasting. Combining activities is also on the rise. So we're quite often seeing food and drink partnered with adventure or adventure and wellness as a package. So for example, you might have a hill walk with foraging as a part of it. And the photograph in the right-hand corner here is from a business called Heathery Heights, who participate in, they offer foraging walks in Argyll. So really tapping into that experience economy. One thing to remember when you're marketing this kind of product is that the technology that we're used to makes response times very quick, and we're seeing much shorter booking windows. And in terms of how you communicate your green messaging must be very individual to you. There's no value in creating a different voice, as it were, to communicate your green commitments. The style and quality should always be reflecting your own brand commitments. If you look at the green tourism photographs at the top here, they are really reflecting the green tourism voice in terms of their style and their fun approach. It's really important to talk about why green issues matter to you, and that it reflects your own interests as well as your customer demands and interests. The messaging needs to be really personal and from the heart. It's really important to be yourself and to use your own voice. This is a lovely Instagram post here from Rora Dairy with a take on President Biden's favourite yogurt. And this was posted during the COP26 activities of 2021. This cabbage head photograph here is a very shy member of staff from Grows Market Garden in Gardswell in Fife. So they describe themselves as soil-loving nerds who want to grow awesome food for lovely people and look after the world whilst we do it. So a really fun veg head here.
Thanks, Sandra. That's brilliant. I think. Oh, sorry. You're going to carry on with this one.
Yeah, I'll do this one. So customers really expect to see your green messaging before, during, and after their visit. This will give them confidence in your product and assurance that they know that you are not damaging the environment, and they won't be damaging the environment when they take part in your business activities. So the images that we're showing here show some of the activities that you can take part in. at Native and Wild. This is an agritourism business at Pathhead, just outside Edinburgh. So there's some really great messaging here, and just in blue here, we aspire to share our journey through our use of social media with our customers and hopefully help those who are interested to learn and understand more about the provenance and journey our meat has been on as it makes its way from farm to plate. So some beautiful photography here to promote their products, their meat boxes, their vouchers, and their farm experiences.
Great, thanks, Sandra. Some really great examples there. I think what I wanted to bring in here was just that importance of customer engagement and sharing your green story and how you communicate with your customers, and very much, you know, as Sandra said, using the language that's within your own brand and your own messaging. It's not something new and different. It should be something that's very much part of your own persona, your own process. And some of the green messages that you can look at telling people about is actually what you're doing within promoting the local culture, or you might be doing something around the wildlife. You might be working with local community initiatives, or particularly sourcing local products and produce. You might be doing something on waste minimization and actually looking at energy and water as well. And you can do that in a very nice way. So the pictures at the top there are from Nithbank in Dumfries and Galloway. So they're looking at very much a quality product. They've got a home garden where they grow a lot of produce, and they're talking about being responsible and promoting local and ethical, and that they care for the environment. It's important to them, and encouraging the wildlife and habitats. So it can be done in a really nice way. So Blair in Perthshire is looking at actually promoting what they're doing in terms of within their B&B, in terms of operational activities around ensuring good practice. So people can use language in different ways depending on the type of business they are and what their customers are expecting. And I think that it's important that you do own that, but you do also share what you're doing. I think visitors nowadays, customers, are interested in what you're doing within your own business, and there's ways of putting that across. And within that, emphasizing what you're doing around your green commitment. And we've got some great examples on our website of how people have told their green story. So if you go to our blog pages on our website, you can see some more examples of how you communicate better with your customers.
So here are some more examples of how food tourism businesses are engaging their customers with their sustainability messaging. So Heritage Portfolio are caterers that they're working on a national basis in Scotland, and they have a contract at the Royal Botanic Gardens in Edinburgh. So understandably, and the approach to the environment is incredibly important to that site and to the client there. So they have a visitor charter that encourages the visitor to check them out before the visit, to understand what they do in terms of food purchasing, in terms of using local produce, and for using product from the garden also. So really engaging with the customer before their visit. The Byres Road Traders Association in Glasgow have made a pledge to resource efficiency, and that's used in all the premises, and it's a physical pledge, a poster that is used in all premises of all food and drink businesses and retail businesses in Byres Road. Another, Andrea mentioned their blog earlier. Another really good fun blog, if you want to take a look at it, is Macbeth's Butchers in Moray, who have the Coos News, and they include updates here on sustainability activity. They are using rotational grazing for their cattle. So some really great engagement with the customers there, and letting people know what the business is about. As we've mentioned this before, having sustainability pages on your website is a really good way to allow the customer to access what your business is doing. I'd urge you to take a look at the Isle of Mull Cheese Company, who have superb sustainability stories on their website. And closer to home for yourselves, Castleton Farm Shop is they have a downloadable sustainability policy and some good messaging and some videos on their website. So a few great examples here, and I'd urge you to take a look at these, well worth a look. So where to tell your green story? We've talked at length about the website, social media. So just all the social channels, which I'll discuss later in the workshop also. Remember to talk about sustainability in any booking forms or downloadable pages that you have on your website. Could even be included in your email signature, in newsletters and blogs, as I've mentioned before. You can have downloadable information and also QR codes using, as I mentioned earlier, when everyone is spending so much time on their phone, we're all very familiar with QR codes in the last year or so. So online, those are the ways that you can communicate your story, but don't forget on site also. So making sure that your staff are able to tell the story, and we're going to discuss that in a later workshop. Signage and other print, your menus, any provenance information that you might have on site. And it doesn't stop after the visitor has gone. Follow up with visitor with feedback, and where you have permission, use every opportunity to follow up with the customer. Make sure you respond to online reviews. It's absolutely vital to do so. So I have a couple of examples here of two companies, one local to the Northeast and another, who have shared their green story in through the website and have done so very effectively. So Angus and Oink are a Northeast business. They make barbecue rubs and sauces, and their style is very quirky, fun. It's collaborative, and this really pushes through into their website and into the story that they tell around their green activity. They're very, very honest. So from the get-go, they admit we can't do everything, but we can do something. So what do? They're working with their supply chain to reduce to reduce single-use plastics. They are focusing on their transport hubs and their distributors. So rather than sending out thousands of small parcels, they're really focusing on having a more succinct approach to that. They are one of many companies who have strived to drive equality in the workforce. And they are really collaborating with social enterprise, particularly with FareShare and others. Now, FareShare are redistributing nutritious food to people experiencing food poverty across Grampian. They work across Scotland, but Angus and Oink are working with the Grampian group. And this is with a drive to reduce food waste. So it's benefiting both businesses, both FareShare and Angus and Oink. So another great website story is from Lochleven's Larder in Fife. So the environment is absolutely at the heart of what Lochleven's Larder is doing as a farm diversification and agritourism business. And the website has lots of information to pass on to the customer about what they're doing. So they're using solar panels to reduce their energy consumption and to generate a massive number of kilowatts in a year. They're optimizing their energy use with these and with the biomass boiler. And they have a beautiful cafe. I'd urge you to go and try it out. And they're using veg-based cutlery for takeaway. They're using paper straws, and they have a very good approach to recycling of glass cans, cardboard, and paper, and always telling the visitor that this is happening. The menu itself is using farm produce and other local suppliers, so really tapping into that local provenance messaging. The shop has everything in biodegradable packaging, no plastic bags, And the farm itself really encouraging biodiversity. So they have beetle banks, they have buffer strips, and they're using wintering stubble. So everything to encourage the birds and the bees back to the farm. So on site itself, and during the visit, it's so important to keep communicating with your customer and endless ways to impart your green messaging. So you can do this in a number of ways in signage and print. If you have a cafe, please include your provenance information in your menu. So where you're buying from, who are your favorite local suppliers, where might visitors also be able to buy these products. Supplier maps are a really great visual tool and they look really beautiful. So that the large map here is from the Scottish Cafe at the National Gallery, which is operated by Contini. And they're, as you can see, buying directly from the very best of Scottish suppliers, right from the Shetland and Orkneys down to Dumfries and Galloway. So a really detailed map here, and it's a work of art in itself. The smaller map is from Benugo, who are Historic Scotland's catering supplier, and maybe not quite as detailed, but really focusing on where the Historic Scotland sites are and what food is being bought from local suppliers. Posters, um, a great way of always been a great way of imparting information, and I really like this Leave No Trace poster from the Burren Ecotourism Partnership with just the very brief outline of the principles of leave no trace. Don't be restricted in where you place your signage. I've even seen effective signage on the back of the loo door. So you've got a captive market there. And lastly, accreditation badges such as our own Green Tourism badge or perhaps Slow Food give the customer confidence in what you're delivering for them.
Great, thanks, Sandra. Some great examples there. I wanted to talk now about lots of people ask us, how to get started, and especially understanding what it is that their customers are particularly interested in. And campaigns is a great way of sharing awareness and raising awareness within your own team, but also within your customers. And there's a great website called awarenessdays.com, which lists, there are many of them, but that's one where you can actually find out what international campaigns are coming up, or what UK or even Scottish campaigns are coming up. And we've listed a few here that are particularly relevant to food tourism experiences around green days, green food production, social justice and biodiversity. And these are the dates that are happening this year. They don't always happen on exactly the same day, but they're issues and campaigns that you can use within your social media in particular. And you might do something with your green team on one of that day. I mean, maybe if you've got compost bins, maybe you're doing what's in your compost, or how do you run a proper compost that works properly. You might be doing something around beach clean and might have a team going out with plastic bags and taking pictures of those and then linking that into the Great British Beach Cleanup. And from that, you'll start to understand through the engagement process on your social media what areas your business, your customers are particularly interested in. I think it's a great way to get started. It's not a significant investment, or obviously there's time involved. And if you're wanting to boost any of your posts, there's potentially some small costs involved. But I think it's a really good way of getting started and understanding what it is that your customers are interested in.
So tying in with that, and particularly with World Bee Day 2021, this is just an example of the Ardbeke Distillery blog, and it's highlighting what they are doing around the bee population on World Bee Day. The distillery work very closely with their local beekeepers association, because the pollinators understandably are so important to the botanicals that flavour the Ardbeke gin. Another campaign here, Andrea mentioned Plate Up for Glasgow. and this was a restaurant campaign to highlight food waste reduction, and it was given a very high profile during COP26 with a huge number of restaurants and chefs taking part. And lots of them were asked to create videos for YouTube. And interestingly enough, it was really all about the chefs. So um, this the each one of the restaurant chefs was given the opportunity to make a little YouTube video talking about their waste reduction tips. So a very, very effective campaign here. So just finally from me on green stories, the main, just thinking about the main channels that can be useful to you on social media to put forward your green messaging. Everybody will be familiar, I'm sure, with Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and I think these are the main channels that are useful to you. Instagram is particularly good, as I mentioned earlier, for photography, and is particularly used around food and drink. So I think my advice to you would be to stick to a couple and concentrate your efforts here. Andrea mentioned paid posts and paid campaigns. Um, well worth doing to boost your social media activity. LinkedIn, I would keep for more professional and trade networking, although food and drink has a huge presence on LinkedIn just now, so certainly not to be ignored. For video content, YouTube and the emerging TikTok trend is particularly used for video. Pinterest I find is really good, not so much for posting on personally, but certainly for keeping abreast of inspiration. If you're working on a specific project, perhaps a new outlet, a new farm experience, but Pinterest is a really good place for inspiration. Blogs are still very, very popular, and a good way to get a regular audience for your storytelling. Some of you may be aware of social media influencers and may indeed be working with them or have been approached by them. Just a word of caution here is to make sure that if you're working with an influencer, that they are on message with your own branding. As we spoke earlier, very, very important to be aligned with that your green messaging is aligned with your brand, and that any social media activity is aligned with your aims and your overall strategy.
Thank you, Sandra. That's some really good advice there. I'm just going to finish the session today with some top tips. They're our top tips. You might have other ones that you want to do, but I think in terms of engaging with your customers, these are what we would suggest would be a good way of starting. And the first one is creating a green content plan. You've probably got or I would hope that you'd have a content plan for your marketing anyway, but what we're suggesting is that you put a green slant on that, and you might look at actually having specific posts that are very about sustainability, as I mentioned, linking in with some of those campaigns that I mentioned earlier, and again promoting your green credentials and making sure that your content plan covers the whole year. And so you're posting on a regular basis. One of the things that your customers, if they're starting to engage with you on sustainability and green issues, is they'll want to see it happening regularly, not just every 6 months. Otherwise, it looks a bit tokenism. So I think having an idea of what you want to do, when you're going to post it, where you're going to post it, make sure your team understands what's happening, so that if one of your customers starts talking about it in the restaurant, that your team is aware of what is being posted online and can talk about it with confidence. And having that plan in upcoming, I think, is really important to make sure that you can build that into your marketing strategy and your content going forward. So that's a really good top tip. And making sure that your green messaging and resources are consistent So linking that in with your content plan, needing to make sure that if you've decided that you're going to use the word green as part of your messaging, then continue to use the word green. If you think that sustainability is the word that actually your customers are more engaged with, then use sustainability. Or it might be that you want to use the word eco. Whatever it is, use consistency within your language and make sure that your messagings are accessible and visible, as like I say, on a regular basis. And making sure that your team understand what your messages are and that they can also talk to your customers in the same consistent way. And thinking about keeping a library of green images, whether that's pictures of your local food, whether it's to do with seasonal crops in your market garden, keeping those images and reminding people that they can come to you at different times of the year. There's different food that's available at different times of the year, and that again might encourage them repeat business. And making sure it links into your content plan. So whatever's on your menu this month is also something you're posting about on your social media. So having that green messaging, keeping it consistent is an important thing and something that we would definitely recommend. And then engaging with your customers. So once you've posted, ask them to like and share. If you've got an opportunity to have a newsletter that that they can sign up to, make sure that you're keeping that conversation going, and that might be incentivizing them through competitions and offers, a gift voucher around a local food produce that you're doing or a local festival that's coming up. Asking your customers for feedback. Again, I mentioned the campaigns, and once you start to get people liking it and putting comments on, then engaging with them and asking them why it's of interest to them or how you could do something better within your business to help. So responding to them is really important. TripAdvisor is it's one of those like it hate it kind of organizations. I mean, it is there, people do use it, and I think the most important thing there is that you need to allow time to monitor the responses you're getting on your TripAdvisor posting and make sure that you're responding to them, to any response, whether it's negative or positive, in a timely manner, and making sure that within your postings and within your responses, you're including that consistency around your green messaging, that you're not greenwashing in any way, and you're reinforcing what your values are when it comes to sustainability. So green engagement, talking and responding to your customers is important. I'm going to mention here green keywords. So I would imagine if you've got a web design or if you're doing it in-house, then keywords are something that you're very much aware of. These are words that are on your website and they're how people find you. And it's through the organic search engine that's on Google and other browsers. And actually what's really important is that you identify what those keywords are that are relevant to your business and to your offering and to your values and to your brand, and they help you connect with your target audience. And what you need to be doing with keywords is actually regularly looking at them. You need to identify what they are, check that they're relevant, check your competition to find out which keywords they're using, and then recheck again and again, and making sure that your green content is part of those keywords, those green keywords. And actually what's important also is on the hashtags, because hashtags change even more regularly than keywords are likely to. Hashtags are often relating to a campaign or an event or to a festival, and so you want to make sure that your hashtags are kept up to date and you're using the ones that are relevant or trending. There is actually a number of keyword research tools out there, and one of the free ones is Google Trends have a keyword research tool, so you can put in there the words that you're using and you can find out how often those are being searched for by your customers. And then if you're using words that aren't being used on a regular basis, then you might change the content of your website to reflect those keywords. And especially, like I said, keeping the green element to it and the sustainability messages is an important part of your searches. And then the last one is a really important one when it comes to customer engagement, communications, is making sure that you review on a regular basis and that you stay up to date. And that will include investing time, whether it's investing time in your team to make sure they're up to date, investing time in your social media and in your website, and making sure that your content is relevant, up to date. I mentioned the keywords, really important, making sure that your hashtags, you're using the most relevant ones, the current ones, whatever's trending is important. Making sure that your website performance is working, especially if you've got a mobile a website that can be on mobile, making sure that that's appearing properly, making sure that your search engine optimization and usability is working, especially when it comes to new keywords you might be introducing around your sustainability messaging. It's a really important part of that. And making sure that your website's accessible. So Visit Scotland recommend a company called AbilityNet. That's their website there. There is a cost involved, but they will do a complete digital accessibility audit for your website to make sure it is readable by people with access issues. And they'll also provide support and training and advice for your digital team or for your in-house social media team to make sure that your website is actually accessible to everybody. And it really is, like I say, it's about keeping up to date, reviewing and making sure that you're relevant and that your green messaging is consistent throughout. I mentioned that there will be some homework. Again, this is a checklist. We've got a Word document that we can, I'll tell you about how you can access them on the next slide. But, you know, this is, again, it's for your benefit. It's not something for us. We're not expecting you to send it in. We're not going to mark you and give you a gold star, but we'd like to. But this is really for you to understand what you're doing currently, making sure you've covered everything that you need to. You know, are you using the most suitable social media platforms? Are you using the right language? Does it reflect your brand? Do you have a content plan? Are you working to that content plan? Is it up to date? Have you got the content plan for the next 12 months organized? Do your team know what that is? You know, are you staying on top of what's trending? Are you thinking about your keywords and hashtags? And are you doing that engagement with your followers and your customers? That's really quite important. So as I mentioned, all of the information, the recording of the website of this webinar and the others that we're working on are available on Opportunity Northeast website. This is number 2 of a series of 4. The first one was Sustainable Food Tourism Experiences Getting Started. The other 2 are about identifying practical changes. So really simple, sensible things that you can do to save money and resources. And then the number 4 is about developing a sustainability strategy. So looking at some of the more kind of in-house structures and policies that you might look to develop your sustainability strategy. If you've got any queries around the workshop, please get in touch with myself through the Green Tourism Inquiries email. But if you want to download or get access to any of the checklists and other workshop materials that we've mentioned during today, please contact Elizabeth at Opportunity Northeast. And we hope you found that useful, and we hope that you'll have an opportunity to view some of the other workshops as part of the series. Thank you.
Thank you.